College Football Smothered and Covered Weekend Feast. This is the episode where we share the best of the week that was on College Football Smothered and Covered. So you might see me dressed up in different shirts or all that jazz, but rest assured this is just a highlight show. BetOnline is your number one source for summer sports this season, whether it be golf, NASCAR, Major League Baseball, whatever. They've got you covered with all the latest stats, news to follow your favorite teams. You can see lines, you can see odds, you can see player props, you can see all of it over at BetOnline. So go to betonline.ag, betonline.ag on your mobile browser or on the web. betonline.ag, where the game starts. Welcome into College Football Smothered and Covered. My name is Barrett Sallee. I really appreciate you guys checking out the show here on a Tuesday afternoon. Still rainy here in Metro Atlanta, but it never rains in the world of college football because there is no offseason. Yes, Josh Pate at 24/7 says that all the time. I said it first, Josh. And I've told you that. We're still friends, though. Love you, Josh. In this show, we're going to talk about the ESPN/Disney opening slate of games. ESPN/Disney released those on Tuesday morning. And man, week 1/week 0 looks like it is going to be one of the most fantastic opening weekends we've seen in our sport in a very long time. So we'll do that in a minute. But like I say, every single show, hey, you know what? Go listen to everybody. Right here on the Believe Network, there's some fantastic shows. So go check those guys out. They do tremendous work. Like I said, my friend Josh Pate over at 24/7 does a great job. Andy Staples on 3 does a great job. The SDS podcast, Crane and Company, all these guys do fantastic work. And you don't get college football coverage the way you deserve it in the new media, or in the traditional media. So the new media has you covered. So go set up a playlist on Apple Podcasts. You can go through, add us all to your queue, and we'll be right there for all of your podcast needs. So if you're watching, if you're listening, hey, you know what? Go give us 5 stars if you can. Leave a review. We really appreciate reviews here at College Football Smothered and Covered. So it really helps us get bumped up those top charts. And at YouTube as well, please subscribe. Share the show with your friends. A lot of action happening on YouTube. Big things popping over there. We have exclusive game videos from my career as a college football reporter / columnist. A lot of great stuff from the sidelines throughout my career. So go check those out. You can find those on the College Football Smothered and Covered YouTube page. Hey, you know what? BetOnline is your number one source for all things sports this summer, whether it be stats for Major League Baseball or whatever. Major League Baseball lines, you can get NASCAR bets, you can get golf lines. You can get everything over there at BetOnline, whether it be sports news or analysis. And of course, you can get game lines, prop bets, all of that stuff. Just go to betonline.ag. You can do it on your browser. You can do it on your mobile device. You can do it basically wherever you are connected to the internet. Go to betonline.ag. BetOnline, where the game starts. And you know what? The season's going to start. Not too far away. I think we're 15 and a half weekends or 15 and a half weeks from opening weekend. And ESPN/Disney released this list. And if you're listening, you can go to the YouTube page and check it out. There's a fancy little graphic that ESPN released. So we're using it here on the show. But let's start in Ireland. Saturday, August 24th, noon. Florida State and Georgia Tech. They get things kicked off, and then later on in week 0, Florida A&M at Norfolk State. But Florida State, Georgia Tech is the one that we're really excited about. 12.5-point favorites are the Seminoles, according to BetOnline. And I talked about this about a month ago on this show, how this is a huge game for Florida State. You might not think it is. It's Georgia Tech, whatever. Haynes King's a good quarterback. Brent, he's done a great job at Georgia Tech. They're not a pushover by any stretch of the imagination. Now, with Florida State, this is going to be a night game. They're going to be over there. They're going to be somewhat, it's an unusual place to start. And so it's going to be tough for Florida State. Plus, new quarterback in DJU, who I still have faith is going to be a pretty good quarterback. You lose Coleman. You lose Johnny Wilson. You lose Trey Benson. You lose Jared Verse. A lot of roster attrition, but a lot of momentum for Mike Norvell. And so that one to me is one of the biggest games of Mike Norvell's career. And I know that's crazy to think that Georgia Tech versus Florida State in week 0 is one of the biggest in Mike Norvell's career. But you want to be a national power. What do you have to do? You have to replace stars with stars. You have to show that the Bama model and the Georgia model is something that you've adopted. And Mike Norvell has a chance to prove that in front of an international audience in Ireland in week 0 against the Georgia Tech team that I think is a lot better than advertised. So it's a big game for Florida State. 12.5 is the line. That's a lot. That's a lot. But I think we'll see what happens down the stretch. This game feels like backdoor cover for the Yellow Jackets. Now, we're not going to talk about Florida A&M and Norfolk State, but opening Thursday night, of course, this game's going to be on ESPN. North Dakota State, of course, the FCS power, going to Colorado to take on Coach Prime. And I would say this is the biggest of the opening Thursday games. And you know what? Colorado might lose. Can you imagine what would happen if Colorado loses? Because why? How could Colorado lose that game? Because North Dakota State's going to get you in a fist fight. They're going to get down to the line of scrimmage. They're going to maul you. They're going to play big boy football. That's how they've become a dynasty. And yes, South Dakota State's kind of gone back and forth with that, but we know what the identity of the Bison is. And it does not match up well for the Buffaloes. It plays right in to their weakness, especially on the offensive line. Now, we've talked about this with Colorado throughout the show since its inception back on February 1st, that, yeah, Colorado's had roster movement all over the place, but Deion told you that was going to happen. It has happened. He has cleared out some of those offensive linemen that were not effective last year and brought in new ones that, quite honestly, can't be much worse, right? But can they be much better? That's the biggest question. And they're going up against the North Dakota State team that doesn't match up well if you're Coach Prime. So opening Thursday, yeah, I know people are sick of Colorado and all the other stuff. And guess what? You're not. You might say you are, but you're not. There's a little thing called search engine optimization, right? I've been a writer for 20 years, 19 years. And over the last 10 SEO, 15 SEO has been a big deal. Was a big deal at Bleacher Report when I was there, big deal at CBS, and the two schools, I should say, that draw the most eyeballs: Colorado, Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, and Texas and Arch Manning. Arch Manning, it's true. So you might say you don't care about Colorado versus North Dakota State. You're lying. You do. Okay, we're going to skip by Temple in Oklahoma. First game for SEC, Oklahoma in the SEC on Friday, August 30th. But the late game on Friday, August 30th, 10:30 is pretty interesting to me. And I know it's TCU, it's Stanford on ESPN, and it's opening Friday and all this other stuff, and Stanford in the ACC, but it's Stanford in the ACC. Like, how could you not be somewhat interested in that, especially going up against a TCU team that we've seen in the past, obviously went to a national championship game, well coached by Sonny Dykes, but it's going halfway across the country and is probably going to play on the farm in a raucous-ish environment for the Cardinal. I mean, I cannot be the only person that's excited about that. I know I can't be. Are you? If you are or you aren't, leave a note in the comments section, because, look, I love college football and I love random games. And like we talked about yesterday when I defended the BCS, I like college football for a lot of reasons other than the national championship. And I think TCU and Stanford can be one of those games where, you know what? You're up late on a Friday night. You're excited about the opening weekend of college football. Let's have some fun. Let's get weird. Am I wrong? Probably in the minority, but whatever. All right, now we get down to Saturday. Now, this is, at the SEC and ABC have the deal now, right? It's my former employer, CBS, doesn't have the SEC contract anymore. So you get a bunch of SEC games on ABC on opening weekend. You started off noon in Atlanta in the Aflac kickoff game, Clemson and Georgia. Then you go 3:30 on ABC, Miami at Florida, and then 7:30 Notre Dame at Texas A&M. Yes, Clemson and Georgia is a neutral site game, but ESPN holds the rights. And then, of course, the home games for SEC teams, Miami at Florida and Notre Dame at Texas A&M. So, of course, Disney has the rights to those. I'm a little disappointed that Clemson, Georgia is at noon. And no, it's not because I'm going to that game and have to wake up early. I wake up early every Saturday. I have 2 kids. But isn't this the biggest game of the weekend? Of week 1 as a whole? The answer is yes. It's the biggest weekend. Now, I know Big Noon Saturday has sort of changed how schools, conferences, and TV executives sort of view that noon window because it has been so successful on Fox. But still, Clemson at Georgia is, I think, one of the most impactful games, not just of opening weekend, but probably the entire month of September. Now, yeah, I think the counter argument to that is that Georgia's 12.5-point favorite over Clemson, and it might not be that competitive, but it still it still matters, right? You're going to see if Clemson can recapture that magic. You're going to see if Cade Klubnik can evolve into a difference maker at quarterback. You're going to see what Georgia looks like after failing to make the college football playoff last year and has a lot of roster attrition. Let's be real. Without Ladd McConkey, without Brock Bowers, there's some questions with the Georgia Bulldogs. I wish it was the night game. Because I think the battle between 2 somewhat traditional rivals, they're not, it's not Clemson, South Carolina, Georgia Tech, but they're an hour from each other, so it matters. It kind of sucks. But why? Why is it at noon? Well, it's very simple because the 7:30 game is Notre Dame at Texas A&M. And if you've watched this show, you know how TV executives view Notre Dame. If you can get them, you put them in primetime. Period. And Disney/ESPN does not have rights to Notre Dame home games. It does have the right to SEC home games. This game is in College Station, Texas against Texas A&M. So what does ESPN and Disney do? They do what they should do, or what happens everywhere. You put Notre Dame in on primetime. Now, I know folks will say, hey, you know what? Notre Dame sucks or whatever, and they're always overrated, and we've talked about this on the show a lot. No, they're not. They, generally speaking, are properly rated. If they're ranked preseason number 10, they're going to probably finish in the AP top 25 around 13th through 8th or something like that, right? Generally speaking, Notre Dame is exactly what we think they are every single preseason. That game's going to have a lot of hype, but it always drives eyeballs. It's an international program. Notre Dame is an international program. It draws eyeballs nationally, but it also gets eyeballs across the world. So that's why Clemson and Georgia is at noon. Because TV executives know ratings for Notre Dame just shoot through the sky no matter who they're playing. In this case, they're playing Texas A&M, which to me, the most fascinating team outside of Alabama in the SEC. Why? Because Mike Elko only has 2 years of head coaching experience. You have Connor Wegman potentially coming back and becoming a star. He has the talent. He's been injured. We'll see what he can do once he's healthy. He's got great receivers, and he's taking over. Elko's taking over a program that had fallen stale under Jimbo Fisher. I can't wait to watch this game. Not because I think Notre Dame's going to make the playoff, not because I think Mike Elko is going to revitalize Texas A&M in year one? It's because the atmosphere is going to be incredible. Night game at Kyle Field. If you have not been to Kyle Field at night, do it. It is a must visit in the world of college football, and you get to see just what Notre Dame can be. They generally win the line of scrimmage. They're going to have a star quarterback in Riley Leonard, who, if healthy, is probably one of the top quarterbacks they've had in about 10 years. And they got to win this game. They got to win it. Because you can't really afford 3 losses if you're Notre Dame. The schedule is easy, but you can probably only drop 1 more if you're going to make the college football playoff. So all of those things together makes it very obvious why A&M Notre Dame is in primetime and Clemson and Georgia is at noon, even though from a playoff perspective, Clemson and Georgia matters more. But as we've talked about, and if you missed yesterday's show, go back and watch it. The lure of college football has very little to do, at least in my mind, of the national championship. Hey, you know what? Go to breakingt.com/smothered and covered. breakingt.com/smothered and covered. You can get this great Texas shirt, Hook 'em, with Quinn Ewers. It's an NIL shirt. They've got lots of NIL content over there. And also, they've got viral material. If something happens one night in college football that goes viral, guess what? An hour later, got a shirt up, and it is always fantastic. Go to breakingt.com/smothered and covered. breakingt.com/smothered and covered. They have you covered. All right. Speaking of Texas, they play Colorado State at 3:30 in week 1. That's on ESPN. We're not going to get deep into that game, but we just promoted Texas, so we might as well mention that their first SEC game is one of these mentioned on ESPN. So is Alabama. Kalen DeBoer against Western Kentucky at night. Fully understand why that is the case. But let's talk about that 3:30 game, Miami versus Florida. It's a show-me game. Miami versus Florida is a show-me game. Both head coaches absolutely have to have it. Have to have it. And it's not just for rivalry's sake, although that absolutely matters. If Mario Cristobal loses to Florida, a Florida team that is downtrodden, I think is the right way to say it, that hot seat's going to be cranked up like a sauna. And if Billy Napier loses to Miami, then he basically, I think, has to run the table into the bye week before the cocktail party, even to keep his job. Whether you believe that should be the case or not, I think that's reality. So that's a show-me game. In fact, when it comes to maybe the most important games in week 1 in terms of the landscape of college football overall, it's that one. Because what happens, the ripple effect, could be huge as to the trajectory of both of those programs, whichever one wins and whichever one loses. I can't wait for that one. I'm going to try to do the double up. I've decided I'm going to try to do the double up. Clemson and Georgia at noon, which helps me out for this double up a lot on Saturday. And then USC and LSU Sunday night in Las Vegas at the big Roomba off the Strip. LSU's a 6-point favorite in this, by the way. Said this before. I'd run away from that as fast as Usain Bolt. There are so many variables in this game that could cause it to go one way or the other. We could be talking about proof that Lincoln Riley is a fraud. We could be talking about LSU's offense being all Jaden Daniels and nothing else. Or we could be talking about both teams actually being college football playoff contenders. But how would we know? That's the beauty of this. It's a throwback to the BCS era where the outcome is going to be massive, but we don't know why. It is going to be phenomenal television. And the idea of LSU fans in Las Vegas, I don't think Vegas has ever run out of alcohol. But those LSU fans are going to make it happen. They're going to try, buddy. They are going to try to make Sin City dry. So it's going to be a wild atmosphere. I love the fact that this is happening. Obviously, we've heard the rumors that Las Vegas is going to get a national championship game sooner rather than later. I think we all expected that. But talk about a dry run for that. You're going to have LSU fans and USC fans there Wednesday night, take Thursday, Friday off of work, party on Saturday, go to the game on Sunday, and fly back home in that Las Vegas haze on Sunday. A little bit of the Las Vegas flu for both of those fan bases, no matter who wins and who loses. So very excited. I think we all knew that. Like, this was not a new development, the announcement that LSU versus USC was going to be Sunday night. I think everybody already knew about that. But just every time you see it, it's just like, oh, hell yes. Let's go. So can't wait to watch that one as well. Then the last one, Boston College at Florida State. Man, Florida State, these first 2 weekends on the road in Ireland in week 0, and then Monday night hosting Boston College in week 1 on Labor Day night. Look, it's Boston College. I think nobody would be excited about that. However, if Florida State beats Georgia Tech, especially if Florida State beats Georgia Tech close in Ireland, what would the narrative be about the Seminoles if they beat Boston College in week 1 on Labor Day night? It'd matter. Maybe not a ton, but it would matter. You go overseas to a very odd situation. You beat an ACC foe, and then you come back the next week, Labor Day night, with all eyes on you, with roster questions still somewhat intact, and you beat another ACC team, and you go 2-0 in conference play to start the season. That'd be a big statement. We might not realize it at the time. I'm certainly going to tell you it's a big statement. But that would be big for Mike Norvell. Man, Florida State getting those stages the first couple of weeks of the season out in Ireland in week 0 and all alone on Labor Day night in week 1. The video game. EA Sports, the new version of the college football video game, was released on Friday morning. And look, I'm 43 years old, right? You might think, hey, a 43-year-old, why are you so excited about the video game? I've played the college football game since high school. I can't remember what it was called, but back my senior year, the first one came out, and I played it forever, even into the 2014 season when I was a boss with Denard Robinson. But I also took Idaho into a dynasty. Check this place out, the Kibbe Dome. My former home, the place where many national championships were won. Unfortunately, Idaho dropped down to FCS, so I can no longer use the Vandals as my dynasty and play in this lovely building, the greatest stadium in college football, the Kibbe Dome in Moscow, Idaho. So still trying to figure out exactly which team is going to lead me to glory. So we'll see about that. But check this out. This is the video that EA Sports released. And if you're listening, go check it out on the YouTube page. If you're watching, this will get you pumped.
Finally, it is here. You can take all that just another game stuff and throw it out. The eyes of the nation are on this field today, and that's what these players live for.
If that does not get you pumped, I do not know what will. From the graphics to the names on the backs of the jerseys, which I think is fantastic. I know that's a little thing that people might not understand, but I'm old enough to remember the days where the game came out and you had to wait a full day and find someone out there who inputs every single name on every single team in the system. They need to download it, they have to upload it. The fact that you saw Kyle McCord and Travis Hunter and Jalen Milroe in there got me so excited. And there were subtleties in that video that I think were fantastic. The 4th and 31 from Jalen Milroe to the back of the end zone. It was not Isaiah Bond and it was not in Auburn. It was to Travis Hunter in Colorado. Things like that. If you have not seen that video, Clemson touching Howard's Rock, everything about that was perfect. And it was just absolutely perfect. And you didn't get to see a lot of the gameplay, which I am totally fine with. But listening to Chris Fowler talk about everything in this game, doing the play-by-play and everything that goes with it, I cannot wait to do this. And, why am I so excited? Before I was, just a kid, not a kid, young adult, and I played all the time. Now I'm a dad. Now I have a 12-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter. I don't think she's going to care all that much, but my 12-year-old is so pumped about this. And I don't think he realizes the kind of tail kicking that he's about to receive. I know this game. I lived on this game. It's going to take him a little bit of time to get used to it. Hopefully this game is not like Madden, because I don't like Madden. Not just because I don't like the NFL all that much. It's because the gameplay is too complicated. I hope this is a little bit more old school in terms of how you can go about playing this game. I don't need to have like 6 different audible options and change every single route at the line of scrimmage. Now, they didn't get into the gameplay, which I think was a little disappointing, but whatever. They're not going to make everything, they're not going to give away everything in this trailer, but this is a big day. And for college football fans, look, I know some people are not gamers. I know some of y'all listening to this, judging from the analytics, judging from the folks at Apple and also on YouTube that give us the analytics. I know some of y'all are older, but this is great for the sport. It's great for the sport. And we'll get into why in just a second. But on Friday, EA Sports did release some of the options and gameplay options. And we're going to go through a couple of these. The first one is one that I will absolutely dominate, and the one that I lived for back in the day. It was the Dynasty. You can create a coach, take control, upgrade their abilities, and build a powerhouse college football program. You can establish your coaching staff and work out to recruit the best players, either straight from high school or through the transfer portal. That's going to be fun. And take your team to the next level where up to 32 players can compete against each other on and off the field. Now, Online Dynasty, that's basically what that is. Super pumped about that. But I'm excited to see how they use the transfer portal, because there are 2 transfer portal windows now. Back in the day, that wasn't the case. Plus, the early signing period exists now, and traditional National Signing Day is not where it was when this game went away. So there are going to be a lot of things to juggle. And I truly anticipate that EA Sports will make this as realistic as possible with everything going on after the end of Championship Saturday. So I don't know how you're going to navigate through all of this, but the transfer portal thing is going to be wild to me. I don't think you'll be able to go out there and tamper. I know you do tamper in real life. Coaches do it all the time. I think they're going to have to dumb down that process a little bit and play it a little bit more by the book. So what you're going to end up having happen is you're going to have players go in the portal, then you're going to get to contact them and all that stuff, which is how this whole thing is supposed to work. But to combine that with high school recruiting going into new National Signing Day, December National Signing period, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to ask players to come on visits. I would imagine that you can do that during the season as well, which is obviously a big deal for coaches, a big deal for players. So that the Dynasty mode to me is exactly what I'm going to do. And the fact that they put the transfer portal window in, fantastic. Interested to see, though, what happens with spring practice, because there is a spring transfer portal window. I would imagine you get to go through spring practice. You get to work on some players, develop players, and then see if they want to leave or see if they want to stay, and then hit that market again. So there's a lot going on in the world of college football that didn't exist back when this game disappeared. And I really hope that they address this properly, because I'll be honest with you, the rollout to this game has been rather sloppy. There have been leaks here and there, and that's unfortunate. And I hope they paid more attention to the actual development of the game itself and not just marketing. I hope they're not Jeff Collins here. I hope they're not Collinsing us. And what I mean by that is build the hype, sell the product before actually creating something that's worth selling. This has been so long in the making. I don't think they would do that, but we have been fooled before. Now, this is going to be interesting. Road to glory. Live the life of a student athlete you created. Take that player, take him to the Heisman Trophy as you build an unforgettable college football legacy. Manage your weekly schedule, GPA, and your image. Earn coach trust to get more playing time, and use the transfer portal to get the time and the glory you deserve. This is going to be interesting. Now, you did a little bit of that back in the day. MLB The Show, which is something that my 12-year-old plays all the time, they have this in a way that I think is fantastic. You get a player, start him at 0, and the game will only show you when he's involved in plays, whether he's hitting or a fly ball goes in the outfield or whatever. I would assume that it's the same thing here. And I know my 12-year-old's going to do this. Like, this is going to be the only thing that he does, and while I build my dynasty. And it's gotten to a point with my 12-year-old that he watches a dude who always wears a Colorado hat take a player, whether it be Aaron Judge or Acuna or whatever, and builds him into a 99. Look, I'm not the biggest. I don't understand what the Utes do with, watching other people play video games, but I think it's prepping him for what's coming in the college football game. So I'm fascinated to see how they work the transfer portal, the GPA thing, time management. Yeah, cool. It's not my cup of tea. If it's yours, comment. Let us know. Let me know. Because I'd love to see how popular this game mode will be. Because quite honestly, I don't understand it all that much. I don't get the allure to it because I just want to play the games themselves. But apparently it's a big deal to a lot of folks. College Football Ultimate Team. Build your dream team of college football stars and legends. Play solo challenges or head-to-head seasons to upgrade your squad. And take on the toughest contests. Test your skills across consoles in more competitive formats like College Football Ultimate Team, Champs, and Champs Gauntlet. Now, across consoles is big because now I've heard that this is the only mode where you can go across consoles, which sucks. I wish they would do that more, but at least they're giving you a little bit. And Ultimate Team, I think, is fun because who wouldn't want, Tim Tebow and Trent Richardson back in the day on the same team, Amari Cooper, all that together would be phenomenal. And I don't like this all that much because I like to have the actual players on the actual teams, but it'll be very popular with a lot of folks because I know that building an all-star team, building, the ultimate team in Madden and in RB and in the show and a lot of these other games, it's what basically everybody does, right? You're not going to build the Falcons into a Super Bowl caliber team, not because you can't, but because what's the fun in that? Everybody wants to go build their own team in a variety of different ways with real people. So this one will be big, especially across platforms. The last one, Road to the College Football Playoff. Experience a new way to play competitively across consoles in the Road to the College Football Playoff, where you represent your university or take Power School to climb the polls. Earn rank by upsetting the toughest opponents and securing the votes you need to progress and level up divisions. Stack wins to earn your chance at making the playoff and take home the national championship. Now, to me, and from what I've read, this basically is, you pick a team and you just only go for the playoff. You don't have to. It's a single season. It's not a dynasty. And that's fun too. I think that'd be fantastic. But this to me is a little too close to dynasty. It's cross-platform though, which to me I think is certainly going to be helpful because I've got an Xbox, or my son's got an Xbox, and my friends are going to get PS5, and I'd rather play them than play some randos who develop some sort of online league, which, whatever, that's not that fun. All right. We're getting away from the game. More serious things, sort of. Sort of. My good friend, my colleague over at Outkick wrote this, Trey Wallace. You can go follow him at Trey Wallace _ or go read his stuff at Outkick. Jimbo Fisher proclaims college sports is not fair and mid-major programs are becoming glorified junior college. And Trey writes, Fisher certainly didn't hold back where he thinks college sports are heading. Jimbo's never been afraid to speak his mind. I've gotten into it with Jimbo during my career. In fact, one time, this is at the Florida State Auburn BCS championship game. Damian Craig was on Auburn's staff. He had been with Jimbo Fisher at numerous stops for like a decade before that season. And I asked Jimbo if he was going to start disguising some signs because Damian knows what's going on. And Jimbo snapped at me. He said, why not? Didn't work with Coley. And James Coley worked at Miami at the time and had worked with Jimbo as well. And I sat there, I kind of laughed. I was like, bro, okay. You're stubborn. I know the pride thing. I guess that was the first time where I really realized how stubborn Jimbo Fisher was. And sure enough, in that BCS national championship game, Damian Craig, flat-billed hat, down low, looking directly across the field. And I guess it's not a surprise that Auburn dominated that first half. Now, that's not cheating. That's not what Connor Stallions did. That's just good coaching and good football. Obviously, Florida State came back and won that game. But Jimbo's never been afraid to pop off a little bit. We saw that with the sliced bread thing back, was that a couple years ago? But I love the fact that Jimbo actually gets to do this without any fear of repercussion because he's right. He's 100% right. These group of 5 teams are going to turn into glorified junior colleges. These FCS schools are going to turn into glorified junior colleges where you only go for a couple years and then you move on. My thing is this. Didn't we see that coming? Like this is all part of the plan. And I say plan, the plan of Greg Sankey, Tony Petitti, the SEC and the Big Ten, and to a lesser extent, the Big 12 and the ACC. This is what they want. Realignment back in 2010, I guess it was 2009 when it actually started with Nebraska, but Nebraska's last game in the Big 12 was 2010 in that Big 12 championship game. Once all of that stuff started rolling downhill, it became clear that the haves and the have-nots, that gap was going to continue to get bigger. So it's not a surprise what Jimbo said. It is interesting, though, that you have a former coach, a high-profile former coach, flat out say junior colleges, because that's different than the haves and the have-nots. What he's saying is that they are going to be pretty much out of sight, out of mind. Now, that part sucks, because there are so many opportunities for players at that level to succeed, to put good game tape on film, and to become NFL players. They don't have to transfer. They could. They don't have to. Now, what you're going to see is much lesser competition. You're going to see game tape that doesn't matter all that much, or at least as much as it does now. And you're going to see fewer opportunities for those players to be seen. And you're also going to get fewer opportunities for players below the group of 5 to play football, because those teams, those programs are going to suffer a financial loss. And so that means fewer scholarships, and that means fewer opportunities for players who aren't that good simply to get education, simply to get healthcare, simply to get food on the table, at training table, get quality training, all that stuff. Because at junior colleges, you don't get an awful lot of that. So it's nice to see Jimbo say something like this. And I'll be honest, I don't like Jimbo Fisher. I don't. Texas A&M fans will tell you that. I didn't like him as a coach. Not too fond of him in terms of the public eye. But I love the fact that he says what a lot of other people said and takes it to an extent of saying they're going to be junior colleges, because that is a completely different thing than talking about the haves and the have-nots. He's basically saying that they're going to be irrelevant. And that's a big problem, because opportunities exist that might not exist because of all of the things that are happening in the world of college football. Reminder, please go check everybody out. Go check out everybody on the Believe Network. Go check out everybody on 24/7, on 3, all that stuff. They do a great job. You deserve college football content 24/7, 365. And these guys all over the place provide a lot of that. So go do that. We are here for you in the new media world, and you should definitely take advantage of that, especially when people are just yelling about NBA playoffs and things like that. Okay, Dabo Swinney. I wrote this for Outkick, and you can go there, go to outkick.com. You can read all the quotes from Dabo at ACC spring meetings. But basically what he said was that he's proud of the fact that he was only one of 4 teams and the only Power 4 coach, Power 4 program not to accept a transfer player during the offseason. The other 3, of course, are the service academies. They're not Power 4, obviously. So Clemson sort of going with a different approach to the transfer portal. And my goodness, the reception across social media, the reception across fans nationwide was that Dabo Swinney is falling behind the times. Now, with that said, he did have a very cheesy, maybe dorky quote where he says, "What are you talking about? We didn't accept," or what are you talking about? We accepted transfers. All of them were from high school. Now, that's a very, very nerdy quote. So he deserves to be ridiculed for that. Not very funny, poorly delivered, but that's okay. That's the only thing that he should be ridiculed for in this instance. This is not a surprise. Dabo has done this throughout the course of his career. He has paved a different path, and it has worked for him at Clemson. Obviously, with 2 national championships, double-digit win seasons for more than a decade. Last year, of course, that streak ended with a 9-win season. But Clemson has, generally speaking, approached things in a slightly different way. And that is okay. First, let's put that quote in context, in proper context. And you can go back to an episode from last week, and I steal a line from one of my favorite podcasters, Dan Bongino, says it's all about snapshots and sound bites. Snapshots and sound bites. That's a snapshot. That's a sound bite. That's a quote. Doesn't look good. There's no doubt. But what he specifically was talking about was the fact that he was pretty comfortable at center. At center. Now, yes, it evolved into a conversation about his methodology when it comes to the transfer portal. But it started because of one position. One position. Does that sound familiar? Oh, that's right. It's basically what Brian Kelly said. It's basically what Hugh Freeze said. Dabo Swinney further pulled back the curtain of what's going on in the college football transfer portal world, just as Brian Kelly did, and just as Hugh Freeze did. And so for those of us on the outside, fans, media members, what have you, that's what we want. We want a glimpse into what's going on. So when we get a glimpse, we can't be pissed off that we got the glimpse. That's stupid. That is just raising hell in the media world just for e-clout. It's fine. And what Dabo said was what Brian Kelly said. Brian Kelly was talking about defensive linemen. And essentially what he said was that he didn't want to overpay for a defensive lineman when he thought he could develop his and be just fine. because the defensive lineman market and the offensive lineman market were out of control this offseason. What position does center? What is that? Oh, that's the offensive line. What was Brian Kelly talking about? Defensive line. Oh, okay. Now we're starting to connect some dots that should be connected. And Hugh Freeze did the same thing. He talked about Peyton Thorne. He talked about the fact that he didn't go get $1 million quarterback because he thought he could develop Peyton Thorne to be what $1 million quarterback was this offseason in this market. So, and what's the problem? I'll tell you what the problem is. Those three men, Dabo Swinney, Hugh Freeze, Brian Kelly, they're lightning rods for criticism. They have been for a very long time. Dabo Swinney, I think in part because of religion. Hugh Freeze for obvious reasons. And Brian Kelly for what happened at Notre Dame. So what happens when all three of them have bad sound bites, give bad snapshots? Everybody piles on. Everybody piles on. That's lazy. Lazy. And is done just for e-clout. That's it. That's all this is. So I applaud Dabo Swinney for doing what he did. I love the fact that he peeled back the curtain and showed us, hey, you know what? This is what my idea is. This is how I want to build the program. No, I'm not going to bring in 30 transfers, 40 transfers like Deion. I'm going to do it my way. Deion did it his way. Now, he's a lightning rod for criticism too, but Deion did it his way. Dabo does it the other way, other end of the spectrum. But you know what's interesting? You know who bragged and pounded his chest and screamed from the top of a mountaintop how proud he was that he didn't accept a transfer during an offseason? Anybody? Anybody? Bueller? Anybody? Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart did that before the 2021 season. And what was he doing in January of 2022 in Indianapolis? He was hoisting this guy. See that thing that Dabo's hoisting? Yeah, Kirby was doing the same thing. National championship coaches, both of them. Both of them. And yes, the landscape of college football and the transfer portal and things like that, it's changed. There's no doubt it's changed since 2021. But Dabo has always done things a little bit differently. That's okay. That's how he built the program to what it was. Hey, reminder, guys, go to breakingt.com/smothered and covered. breakingt.com/smothered and covered. We're talking about Clemson today, and you can get this beautiful Clemson t-shirt. How about the Valley? If you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, you can see this because it's right there on your screen. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, make sure you go check it out on YouTube, subscribe all over the place, share it with your friends, all that stuff. But you can get this shirt. Go to breakingt.com/smothered and covered. And it's not just Clemson. They've got shirts from essentially every college. Great stuff, whether it be traditional shirts like that, or if something goes viral, it pops up on Breaking T an hour later, whether it be college football, college basketball, Major League Baseball, a lot of Brave stuff. Everything is over there. Go to breakingt.com/smothered and covered. We shouldn't be surprised that Dabo's doing things differently. That's how he built Clemson to what it was. Think about this. Double-digit wins for a decade, more than a decade, 11 years, 12 years, whatever it was. Last year was a 9-4 season. When 9-4 is the floor, and I think we all sort of look at Clemson and say, okay, yeah, that's about the floor for Clemson. I would love to hear an argument that it's not. Even if you don't think Dabo's doing it the right way, I would love to hear an argument about why it's not the floor. So Dabo built this thing in a way where it is sustainable. There's no question about that. That's etched in stone. But how did he do it? With that all-in family, right? He uses that phrase all in, and he has used it 15 years, probably 15 years, because he built it around a family. He built it about guys who wanted to be there, guys who wanted to stay there, guys who bought in to what he was selling. Let's take Deshaun Watson, for example. There was never any chance Deshaun Watson was going anywhere other than Clemson. I believe he committed to Clemson his sophomore year. Might have been early as his junior year, but he was committed to Dabo. He was not committed to Clemson. He was committed to Dabo. And that was the case for a lot of other guys during the first part of Clemson's run, right? Now, you look at those classes. No, they were not what Georgia was, and no, they were not what Alabama was. They were 4th to 10th in the 24/7 composite, somewhere around there, pretty much every single season. I think one year they dropped below 10th. I think they were like 14th or something. And yet they still won national championships. Why? Because of the identity of the program, because of the attitude, because of what Dabo instilled in that program. And there has never been a greater example of that than after the 2017 season. And if you remember, that 2017 defensive line was loaded, and they could have gone anywhere. And that was actually after a pretty bad Clemson team still made the college football playoff, lost to Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, and then Alabama went on to beat Georgia in the national championship game. Kelly Bryant was there. That 2018 team could have lost everybody on that defensive line. But Christian Wilkins, Clelin Ferrell, and that crew decided to come back. We talk about this on the show all the time. Teams and players with that hashtag unfinished business mentality are the ones you need to look out for. Clemson that year in 2018, Georgia in 2021, Florida State last year. Those are the teams you need to look out for. That team set the tone for it. That defensive line set the tone for it. Because of Dabo. Because of the identity that he built. So no, to me, and I've kind of done a 180 on a lot of this stuff, right? I've gone kind of all over the place with my opinion on Dabo. Yes, he does need to adjust a little bit. And he even said this. He said in that quote, and again, snapshots and sound bites, in the quote from ACC spring meetings on Tuesday night, he said that he did try. He tried to find transfer players. This is not some sort of philosophy that exists. He admitted that, yes, he tried to go after a few guys, just like Brian Kelly did, and just like Hugh Freeze did. He didn't like them. He was content with what he had. That's fine. You get guys who want to be there. So no, this is not a case of Dabo Swinney failing to adhere to the new rules in college football or lack thereof. This is just a continuation of what he's done forever, of what he did to build that program into a national championship program. That's all it is. And you know, I like Dabo. I've made no excuses. I've always liked him. A lot of people don't. And again, a lot of people don't like Hugh Freeze. A lot of people don't like Brian Kelly. A lot of people don't like Dabo Swinney. Why? Think you can think about what some of those guys do, especially Dabo and Hugh Freeze, from a faith standpoint, and you can start to connect some dots. I'm not saying this for everybody, but I'm saying this for a good bit of people in our world. And that's sad. That's sad. Because Dabo should not be criticized for that. And in fact, I think it's part of the identity of the program and how he builds it the way he has, with players who want to be there, with recruits who aren't just superstars, but still feel like they can buy enough. Sure, Dabo gets his studs. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. But he does it with personal relationships, more so than I think a lot of other coaches. Y'all need to chill out with the criticism of Dabo Swinney. What he said Tuesday night about not accepting transfers is not a case of him being reluctant to do so. It's the fact that he didn't see the upside when compared to what the dollar value was in the current market. That's all. It's exactly what Brian Kelly said, and it's exactly what Hugh Freeze said. Now, Brian Kelly didn't say it very well, and I don't think Dabo Swinney said it very well either. And that's why all the criticism, especially for both of those guys, is what it is. But we can't ask for coaches and players to peel back the curtain and then get pissed when they peel back the curtain. That's not fair to anybody. And it certainly doesn't do the sport any good. And I'm not talking about just media members. Talk about fans too. Chill out. It will be okay. It is fine. If coaches don't feel the market dictates that they should go out and get a player, that's fine. And in Dabo's case, he specifically was referencing a center. And so he was fine with the two that he has. And no, they may not be as good as whoever, player X with a high dollar figure. But if he's content, he's content. And that's all this is. That's all this was. But, you know, E-Clout. Got to have it, man. That's what all this is. Got to have it. And unfortunately, I think high school players and maybe transfer players pay too much attention to that stuff too. And I think that's got to change. I do think that's got to change. Unfortunately, in this day and age, it's not. There's just no way. It's not. That will do it for this edition of College Football Smothered and Covered. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show. Reminder, this show brought to you by BetOnline.ag. It's your number one source for all things summer sports, whether it be Major League Baseball, NASCAR, golf, whatever. They've got you covered. Get all the latest stats and scores available for your favorite teams, game lines, prop bets. Everything is there. So go to betonline.ag on your browser, on Chrome, on Safari, on your mobile, on your tablet, on your laptop, whatever. Go to betonline.ag. They've got you covered. BetOnline, where the game starts. And if you haven't shared this show, if you haven't written a review, if you haven't given us any stars, please feel free to do so. And hey, you know what? If you don't like the show, let us know in the comments. I'd love to know what you like. I'd love to know what you dislike. So the crew here at College Football Smothered and Covered can tailor this show to what you want during the college football offseason, although there really isn't any offseason. So please let us know. We'd love to get constructive criticism. It's what we do best. It's what we crave here at the show. Until next time, have a great Thursday afternoon, everyone.